Now, to say yesterday was a huge day for us Arsenal fans, that would kind of be an understatement. I mean, we first had Mikel finally get announced by the club, even though we knew this deal would be done. So excited to see what Mikel can do in this Arsenal team. Then we had Wojciech Szczesny, a former Arsenal player, announcing his retirement. We had Fabrizio Romano still talking about the potential of Aaron Ramsdale leaving Arsenal. And we got a here we go for Crystal Palace agreeing on a deal to sign Eddie Nketiah from Arsenal. A huge deal worth £30 million, the whole package. Nketiah has already accepted the deal. It's all good to go. The deal is just now to be announced essentially, and the medical to be done. So it was a huge day for us Arsenal fans yesterday, and the Eddie Nketiah knew the squad, and I'm sure about how a lot of Arsenal fans see the squad. Us Arsenal fans have always been debating about if we need a striker or not, and I believe the sale of Eddie Nketiah to Crystal Palace just may make us need a striker. I made a video maybe 2 weeks ago saying that we don't need a striker. Kai Havertz and Gabby Jesus are good enough, and if we keep Nketiah, well, then he would be a good enough backup. But now without Eddie Nketiah, we not only look a little bit light up front, but now we will have a lot more money, and now a striker joining Arsenal without Eddie Nketiah, only having Gabby Jesus and Kai Havertz seems a lot more realistic now. But is that the right move? Should Arsenal look to get a striker? If so, what quality level of striker should we get? How much do you think we can even spend on a striker? And is this even a need? Well, that's what we'll be talking about today. So what's going on, everyone? You are listening to Gunner Central here. I hope you're all doing well. Please be sure to like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get into it. Now, I made a video maybe a month ago saying that Arsenal are just horrible at selling. This came after the news of us selling Lokonga on a loan with an obligation to buy, and selling Nuno Tavares on a loan with an obligation to buy. I said that Arsenal were a horrible selling club. We just kind of sold players way too late, or we didn't sell them for their market value because we're too desperate to get them off our books. But I will say that after those little transfers in the beginning of the window, Arsenal selling wise have really picked it up. We've done extremely well to get £32 million out of Emil Smith Rowe, a player that barely ever played any minutes for us in the past 2 years, and we've done really well to hold out, reject Marseille, reject Nottingham Forest, and hold out, be patient, and sit on our hands and wait for the right offer for Eddie Nketiah. We said in the beginning of the window, all these reports came out that Arsenal wanted only £30 million, nothing less, not a penny less, and we got offers around £25 million, around £28 million, but we continued to reject it. And despite Eddie Nketiah wanting to leave to those clubs, we continued to reject, we continued to be patient, and we finally got our £30 million. A huge sign of Arsenal actually fixing a huge error I thought we've had, which is selling players. We waited for the right opportunity and we've sold Eddie Nketiah for £30 million. We've done really well on the selling front. We've sold players that we all know we weren't going to be using this season, and we've sold them for a pretty penny at that. Fair play to Arsenal. I will say that I criticized them in the beginning of the window for selling, but as of right now, they are making me eat my words, and I'm happy to do so. But I mean, I would say from about maybe the 20th of August, maybe about a week ago, I was pretty convinced that after Mikel we would pretty much be done with our business in the transfer window, maybe outside of the goalkeeping situation with Aaron Ramsdale. I thought it didn't look likely that we'd be getting ourselves a right winger. Reece Nelson didn't look likely to be sold. Eddie Nketiah even didn't look likely to be sold, being that so many clubs were just falling through in the talks. So I was actually pretty convinced that this is the team that we'll be running with after Mikel gets announced, and I was pretty much happy with that. I think this team is really good, and if the right circumstances happen, we could definitely win the Premier League with this team. I think we have everything from one of the best defenses in the league. We have an elite manager, really strong midfield, especially now with Mikel joining, and I thought up front was maybe our only weakness, but over what Kai Havertz did towards the end of last season, plus Bukayo Saka being one of the most slept on wingers in the world, plus having Leandro Trossard, plus having Gabby Martinelli, plus having Gabby Jesus, I thought this team in the right circumstances could win the Premier League this season. I mean, we did so well in the previous 2 seasons. We've only gotten better, especially on paper, so I thought that we could definitely win the Premier League, and I was quite happy to know that our business was pretty much done. It wasn't a huge spending window like last season, but you can't spend so much every window, so it was understandable. We've got 2 huge players in Mikel and Calafiori to add more depth and more quality to the team, and I was pretty happy that our business would pretty much be done outside of the goalkeeping department. But now selling Eddie Nketiah, which to be fair, it was something we had to do. Eddie had 2 years left on his deal. He wasn't getting much game time. Now would be the most we could get him for if we sold him now. Selling Eddie Nketiah just makes sense, right? I think we can all agree. If you love Nketiah, if you don't love Nketiah, we kind of had to sell him. And now selling Eddie Nketiah makes me think that we might be a little bit light in the striking department. Yes, Kai Havertz is most likely our starting striker, which I'm more than happy with. Gabby Jesus is our backup striker now, but with him being so injury prone, I mean, he's even even injured right now. I don't really know if that's something to run with, because let's say Kai Havertz, touch wood, gets injured and Gabby Jesus is injured. Surprise, surprise. What do we do then up front? Of course, you could play Leandro Trossard as a striker, but I think Leandro Trossard's best suited as a left winger, potentially a right winger if absolutely needed, but I prefer Leandro Trossard out wide, even though he has had games where he's performed really well as striker, and he is a usable striker. Martinelli is even a usable striker. I do think maybe we're a tad bit light up front, and with us selling Nketiah for £30 million, you'd imagine that now there's a little bit more money flowing around, and with us still having a hole at right wing, maybe still needing a goalkeeper because we might sell Aaron Ramsdale, and now potentially needing a striker, business may not be done at all. I think we have to get ourselves a right winger. I love Ethan Nwaneri, but I profile Nwaneri more down the middle of the park in an Odegaard position as opposed to a right winger, even though he can play there. I don't think Sago Jr. is ready from the academy to step up into right wing. Even Reece Nelson I don't think is a good enough backup right winger. So I do think we still have a hole at right wing. I think we have a hole in goalkeeper because obviously Aaron Ramsdale will be leaving and Juan Garcia looks likely to be joining Arsenal. But with us having a hole at right wing and now maybe potentially being light up front, do we need a striker, or should we focus the rest of the window on the goalkeeping position and potentially the right wing position? And if we need a striker, well then what level of a striker do we get? First of all, I think if we determine that we need a striker, if we say we are a little bit light up front, I don't really trust Jesus and Havertz for a full season. Maybe a third striker would be a good option. Well then what level of a striker do we get? Of course, everyone will say Victor Gyökeres. I would love that signing. I mean, he's an absolute goal scorer of note, but he would cost around 90 to 80 million pounds, and I don't think that's really realistic right now, and I think that wouldn't really make sense because then that would kind of relegate Kai Havertz, a player who has proven to be elite in Mikel Arteta's system. I do think if we are to determine that we need a striker, we're gonna need maybe a younger striker, someone that would be happy to play as the third striker. Of course, Šeško would have been perfect in that kind of role, but obviously that's never happening. Listen, I still don't think it's an absolute must that we need a striker. Yes, we may be a little bit light up front, but like I said, Trossard could play there if needed. Gabby Jesus, Kai Havertz still, Martinelli if absolutely needed. I'm not saying we shouldn't get a striker, but I think we should rather focus on the right wing position and the goalkeeping position before we worry about a striker. And if we do get a striker, I don't think we should go splash 90 million pounds on a striker. I think we should go get the right profile striker, hopefully on the younger side, and he can just come in, play as a third choice striker if needed. He won't cost that much money, hopefully. I think that will be the better option going forward. Although as of right now, I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know if we need a striker or not, but I do think the sale of Eddie Nketiah is absolutely huge, and it may just change the way we approach this last little bit of the window.